it's really effective. Someone listening or looking through the video clip that's going on with this is getting a really good new insight. And that it's possible for us to really be able to have communicated this, so it's really tailored ever more to your sense of things which you have already inside. And so this is involving ever more like a standard more for someone where the listener is, because it's really about reframing and putting proper scientific pieces there, you see. And that this is sort of what gains validation. I mean, you're using whatever accessible wordedness and languaging where we are. And the storytelling, I feel, is really compelling. You get to see quite a few things which is going to be brand new for everybody. And so it's going to be resetting the science actual. Yeah. So it's not about a theory at all, and it's not just about one thing. So Jubb rejuvenation isn't a noun. It's a verb and a way of going about doing things, and the same with whole brain functioning. Yeah. Would you really want to know how blood is formed? I mean, or are we going to just accept that something that was sort of found in the 1800s, but an incorrect condition overall about how blood is formed, and then in 1925 also sort of like something comes along, and would it be just because nobody has questioned any of that except for just right now? Like with you here, by kind of letting everybody know how, where you look under a microscope, a really good one like I have, you can see how fat cells certainly release and reverse differentiate their double spores. Their double spores aggregate together, and those aggregates fuse together, and then that fusion reverse differentiates itself into a red blood corpuscle. So under starved conditions, of course, you could see fat cells and other things reverse differentiating, but it just wasn't ever looked at. And so the only thing that was looked at was because, chickens were starved and they looked at their long bone. So because the red blood corpuscle is totipotent, and all cell it can become, and the double spore that makes up every single organelle inside your body is a building block that's there in the blood, and that can aggregate, fuse, and differentiate into a astrocyte or something like this, you see, because of what's needed, where that is, or any other material. So this is really a brand new insight. I'm positive, and yet unchanged over a long period of time. It is that I've been talking about this. So your red blood corpuscle at some point could become a phagocytic immune cell. That's right. It can pleomorph into an astrocyte. So as you can see how the live colloid, which is double spore, can aggregate, fuse, and differentiate into an astrocyte cell. So where there was really no DNA, that there isn't any nucleic acid in a red blood corpuscle, suddenly that you see this has formed and transmutated from things which is existing there, and now you've got DNA inside a cell, and you've got an astrocyte, it's just like an immune cell. So it's real noticeableness that back then and today, if you had a little look, you'd see bone marrow is some place which you could see that happening under a great deep fasted condition, but otherwise you're going to see it happen everywhere else if you looked. And so the subject bias of the past and the very deep slippery slope afterward of reasoning just evermore could have only been centered, which it has been, on the long bone wrong, because everybody didn't look anywhere else. Yes, okay. So the long bone marrow activity has gone on, hasn't it, ever since? Diddums. Okay. So, well, how is it possible for other researchers to have missed looking in other places, you see, and having theorized about things but not really having a grand unified totality? And what about all the blood? And how did it come along through mitotic cell division, which is untrue? There's no mitotic cell division sort of assay that could show that could have ever occurred from the marrow of your long bone. And so it's really wrong that blood came from mitotic cell division. That's completely untrue. And you have to have examined what this is that we're talking about right here now. So tissue didn't ever come from the long bones. You see? Starved chickens. It's a bit wonky, you see. It's only of a partial truth. So, it's completely wrong that your cells came from mitotic cell division, you see. That's just absolutely false. It comes through a process of aggregation, fusion, and differentiation, and every single cell of your body came from a red blood corpuscle initially. Okay. So if we're looking at this idea, it's a lot looking at what's misguided, and all the surgeries and all the primary condition of thinking where the site of the red blood corpuscle formation is, which is in the intestine, and where the lungs are, and brown fat cells and things such. So it's really responded with a physiological condition is where your cells need to be more respiring. And it really does require you to have substances like hematopoietin that's produced that gives you the capacity to be able to produce more red blood corpuscle. So it is. My teacher, Cloud, two children, taught Annie and I, and I studied with her for some 9 years on the road, and Cloud ordered me to attend to eye awareness first of all. And so it was really an outward lived example of what's missing most, and that's what's absolute as space is, which nothing else is except for I, and am, which is care, so it's like I am. So I just simply followed those instructions, and I've really gone on a road less travelled a lot. And the technique of particular, not really a course of breath or some sort of body work per se, and yet ongoing and not turned on or off. And it's sort of really like a sitting, walking meditation in eye awareness, and you're really in perfect detachment, so you've got no bias. So you're practicing your own spontaneous creative intelligence. And you're looking over all the places you've left yourself behind, because you'd see that it's noted you're turning toward things and bring things within. And this is the right use of the vestibular sense versus outside and away from. And so what's congruent and integrated ever more where a focus is, it's got ever more perfect detachment where a sense of eye awareness is, and you're looking at anything. I'm positive that you're going to get something way more scientific than what you have been given maybe through Google. So everything is really wrapped around care. Emptiness is. And it's really just looking at things very simple and blunt. Because you've got inductive and deductive reasoning, haven't you? Of course you do. And it's like my teacher told me, hey, the more that you practice this, the more you teach it, the more you're practicing. It's really a path of excellence, and it's a real powerful solvent for all pleasure bank stickiness and fear, stuck to that sort of stuff, being unstuck, you see, getting in the flow again. So you're really learning not to be attracted to those banks anymore, sort of thing, but be in more the flow of life. And what would it be for you, like 20, and let's say 90 seconds before doom? Yeah. Of course, Cloud told me to really hold on to my being and eye awareness, and you can do this tenaciously, you see. And so you're not moving sideways, not not even for a split second. It's like your best to follow these instructions, okay? So in a flash, it just seems like a comparative timelessness, of course, where some realisedness is where your self is, and where truth is I aware self, you see. And where is this? Where you've got no inner dialogue. So being in uptime, of course, you see, it's like a visiting frame where somebody opens the door and you go, hi, how you doing? And that's like a gamma wave being released, you see. And that causes most everybody to fall more into an alpha rhythm now, you see. And so where some outcome could be reached is that more bliss is, and more positive and pleasure conditioning is where the brain is, because you're only going to be in your frontal cortex. And being is where this wisdom is. And it's really how life would have been ceasing evermore if you just only looked at the tasks that was driven where you are. And it's also really nothing like what's just simple itself as bliss. So it's where your balance is evermore and your referentialness, which is like where are you getting information from, and also your own orientation. And so it's like your mind, all of a sudden, all the internal chatter is just really gone, and the external of who is real is more, and what's inner is like outer. And so it's really getting rid of all your experiences and everything. You sort of try to come up with some memory about. If somebody's trying to share that sort of stuff, it's like, oh my God, you're going to get kicked off the stage quick, because that's not yours or my unlimited self where we are. And so it's really an intimate, more world-being, more where focus is on universal consciousness versus something that was frozen more. And so it's more of a world-being. And so it's sort of a focus on the things which is real versus fictional. And so it's really your momentary projection where your body is, and a basic confusion that can have been, it doesn't get cleared away because you've got this new synesthesia being given to you, you see. And so it's using your thought where you're thinking out about stuff that's been going on, and I'm giving you some bits to pieces that you can like think about and give, so that it is a stick and it just burns all the other sticks, you see. So it's clearing up dichotomy. So Cloud would remind me by just sort of saying, oh, you know what, the more you're teaching this stuff, the more that you're really learning it. And what's the big mistake? That it's not your attitude? No. It's not your behavior? No. It's not your capacity? No. It's not what you could do, or your environment, or your family. No. These could all be just like some string of events you've got behind you, having thought that's your identity, which it's not. So behavior and capacity is really your true identity, evermore where you are I-aware. And this is your true identity. Otherwise, it's not any of those things, you see. So it's really where the inner chat has been quietened down evermore, because you can never be aware that you could talk about any behavior, because that's not you. Is this a subject that you could talk about? Yes. So gapping is really like living in the gap, yeah, and gapping everything right. And so once the mind is still, quiet, transparent, you can be still looking at the moon rather than the end of your finger, you see. So if the sun is rising, how good is this? It's sort of really, you can see the world, it starts to cause the world to be active, and it's just you and I being in uptime, in I-awareness. So all that's really needed is your I-awareness, you see, and you're banishing all the pain, because there is no need. So you're looking at how need already was an approach where somebody was, and you've got this reverence, and this is your lovingness, and it's your own self-aversion and pessimistic type of lacked self, you see. Didn't rent space for that. Grievous sorts of error and constant polarization non-stop, and fear and flight, and trying to give somebody advice from fear or flight or fright. It's like, oh my God, needy, you need this, you need that. And pain, yeah, Pavlovian, conditioned. So fear, flight, fright, and need and pain, search for, which that's been where you've been. It's just to gain pleasure as a sign of some falling in love evermore with your own self, you see. It's love of self and its own inner totality, and you're committing yourself to not anything else. And so you're really gluing yourself more to this I awareness and the infinity and eternity of what is I. And exploring everything more. So an empty-centeredness, as we're focused on this, is going to be a better thing for you, isn't it? You could automatically be happy, of course, walking into a crowd. You could get served, you see, even where there was no queue. But if you don't have any aversive anything, beloved you meet there, going to let you find your way in between everything. In other words, aversion would have neurologically inhibited the frontal cortex. And so somebody would have been inviting aversion and resisting and fighting and polarizing. I mean, that's sort of just inviting a fight, isn't it? And it's just a happening, isn't it? So awareness really is where you've got perfect detachment, and you're meeting no resistance more. And so wanting and searching for compliments, oh yes, and being pleased by getting compliments. It's like seeking reward. How about for good behaviour? Yeah, why not? Why not get rewarded because you've got conscientiousness? You're much more conscientious with the things you're doing, and you're getting things done because of it. So you're really getting a good score, that's right. And it's getting a good long jump prize, honest to God, and passing through some testedness. But the void which you have where this is your being in the present. And this is the eternal self, you see. So if you're standing or sitting or you're listening, as stillness, quietness, transparency is, it's all ever more like something is like a stealth waiting in the dawn time, and you're just sailing to distant places ever more and more, where perfect detachment is. And the old is over. It's the new, yeah. It's this golden age that you're waking up to, and it's just getting rid of all frozen logos. So it's a beautiful, more dear state versus distressed. And so it's really nothing to be afraid of. Anybody could remember that good instructions that's carried out, you see, that you come across. You go beyond, and like blood, it's made through a process of aggregation, fusion, differentiation, you see. So this I am is ever more answering things within you, listening and hearing, and you're more in listen, speech, your own self, where blood is way more than just a gas transporter. What the hell? Please. What do you think? Where does all the substance for your body come from? What happens to these red blood cells corpuscles when they are spent? You see, what's ever been is just a theory. What this is more a grand unified totality. So the red blood corpuscle has more totipotency, where it could become an immune cell and everything that is there is on this functional plasticity, and you're picking up a pattern out of what's random, and suddenly there's something non-random that's forming there, you see. And it's all in a moment where you're living, and one is feeling the space where room is more inside now. You know what I mean? And so you've got more an empty, estranged momentariness where something is really desirable. Yes, it is. And it's this soul where you are casting an anchored state and setting off more and more this distant shoreline, you see, and remembering the instructions about having good sticky factor for the things that work, okay. So bliss is really being released, yes. You've attained this high awareness. It's bubbling forward and achieved. It comes from your emptiness. And it's sort of really no longer in some hedonistic type of, I got to have a memory, or, oh, I've got to try to share some experience I had. It's like, oh my God, please. So pleasure and fear driving and memory and things like that is all could have just been your mind so restless, it's crazy. But pleasure gaps in a stream evermore where pain isn't, and pleasure isn't either. It's just you're in a flow, and it's a happiness. So life called transmutation is really what's going on in your intestine, and that you're wrapped around a garden, and you've got magneton where density is less or more, and you've got this north and south and neutral charge magneton there. And you're looking at life colloid, transmuting one element into another. Yeah, that's right. And you're looking at an element and it's not fixed, no, but different amounts of combinations of things a little bit. And some of those magneton, if it's come from life, is enzymatically linked versus enzymatically stuck. Okay? So life colloid can interact with that rock and can organize that rock to come into something which could be an element in life, and then that can become to something where you and I could have that element rise into consciousness, be part of consciousness, but otherwise, no. Not really. It's like, no, you can't get your nutrition from licking rocks. Okay, let's just get out of that. Let's not put rocks in the system. No, stop. Right, okay. There's 3 types of water. Don't put any water in, because why? Except if it's something that came from a body more like yours, well, that's going to work. But otherwise, no, because you don't even know there's 3 types of water. Stop. Don't be injecting things and doing all sorts of stuff which you don't know. So one element is transformed into another where your intestinal tract is, and you've got a topological structure of magneton, you see, 3-dimensional. By transforming things where aggregation, fusion, and differentiation is where this is, you've got magneton density configured, and you've got one element transmutated into another, smaller and larger. And so the element that your stomach, in essence, that it passes on, is supposed to have pancreatic and prana functioning too. But if you eat complex carbs, heavy fat, and heavy protein, you combine it together, what goes on? Somatostatin is released, and your stomach and pancreas is being shut down every time you did that. So we're talking about letting the stomach be versus doing things that's a bit abnormal. So we're going to be learning a bit more about this. But awareness really is you more in your real self, and it's this distillation of what the simplest form is. And it's listening, and you're getting a bit of a shortcut right now to success, you see, because it's really adding these bits that comes to be more precognitive for you. So it's below consciousness, and so it's before you start thinking. It's organized your thinking. And now your random phoneme generators popped something. And so suddenly you've got consciousness. It's like, yeah, that's right. You could then express this. And you've got 6 weeks of very good solid recall through association. And it's very latent, you see. It's a pattern. And it's your own universal consciousness that's getting tapped here versus frozen logos. And so something has really got this centric state of beautifulness. It's got a proxemics of love, cupping, holding, cradling type of shape versus shearing force. So what's being predicted, really, you see, what's your own cognitive acquired capacity? Is that just your willy-nilly psychic phenomena that's been going on and looking and seeing and just blissful bits of things? Yet what about science and letting information come to be logged more now and becoming ever more directly aware that events where things are and you're watching for this, it's starting to cause your group think to be much more where you're in uptime and others are too, and you're able to actually be able to feel like what corporate medicine is. It's got no central organised nervous system. And companies just are bought just under CB Cower, and everything is just stolen of your own personal information and sold on to private merged ledgers and all sorts of things, which did anybody give the permission to anybody to do that? No. So what's the story about? Is it about actually what the whole thing is, or are you just trying to describe the elephant's tail? Oh my God, please. Well, let's look at the elephant, you see, in the room. So CB Cower, of course, system where Google is and everything sort of commercial basically is very biased by market position, just to chop whatever's real research off. And so everybody would have been influenced by society in a negative, inducted economy. Wow, that's not anything you and I selected. No. And so it's just like saying enzymes do not count. Why? Because Google says enzymes do not count. And Google sort of doesn't say that. It's just like what's that's written. And then what is it that all the doctors or everybody else will say? They'll say enzymes do not count. Okay. Well, that's bull dust. Crazy. It does not add up. It's not logical. So it's a very good example of how Google is screwed, just over the top wrong. Okay? Because you can't say enzymes don't count. Okay? So get over it. So it's what, just because you don't even know how the hell enzymes get transported? That's right. Grow up. But don't go along with some stupid saying like enzymes don't count. That's dumb. But look at Google and ask it. Oh, my God. Cystic fibrosis, it'll say, yeah, rare disease. That's right. And blood's made in your bones. And there's no difference, you see. No. Live food, dead food, big deal. Where did that attitude come from? That is not science whatsoever. Okay? So competition and dominance, where a criminal banking cartel of a one world order is just a company, and you've got little incentives and motivation to improve some services, like bull dust. And you've got some product efficiency, don't tell me that. And you're not exploiting something just all of a sudden with statistics, jumps onto a jumbo jet and it sort of multiplies itself. It's like, stop. You're just like a Fergus son in England who did all that stupid math. What are you going to tell me? There's not stupid math? Bull dust. There sure is, okay? So just don't be a quant. And why not actually get into qualitatively looking at something? Yeah. So otherwise you're sort of being just given some binary choice out there, yeah, like a straw man argument, which doesn't satisfy anything that you've got inside. And so you've got to accept some monopolized company's term. Otherwise, do not use your service. Wow. You see? How unethical is that? You see, it's disgusting and shocking, and it's crazy how much that's going on right now, all right? And never, ever before. But you can see people waking up to things, yes, and so they should. You've got massive kites in the sky, don't you? You've got actual sales points and things. You've got concentratedness of where wealth is, where hands are in the few. Like the World Economic Forum, how dumb. My God. Okay. So, like a lot of things, lots of things could improve. And why would you want to just pick on just one thing? Geez, please. So, if you're spending time and you've spent your life and you're just a mouth breather, you're a rabbit breather, yep. You breathe so fast, you're just going to have a short life. So what's the reason why you couldn't understand how the cause of mucus and is really what your passages are happening where something would have other than kept open, meaning they got shut down? And how long has that been where you've felt, oh, that's fine? And so somebody just goes along and they're eating their dead food and they're just letting all of that be. And where's your interest in operating of a more, typically it's like, no, that dead food is all only caused you to be operating from aversion, polarized, and just shrimping anybody's frontal cortex. So it's a faculty to inspire creative influence of the future. Don't get ghosted, yeah? It's a drug you need or something. There's no attention, really. Where that is to nutrition or detoxification. So is that just sort of like because you can only hold one thing in your brain at one time? Yeah, I guess. Well, then what should that be? Nutrition and detoxing, okay? So it's a big monologue. It's a big monopoly. It's a Google Eyes view. Got to be careful. Don't use a word like, I don't know what that is. So you'd have to look that up and see what they don't want you to use. Otherwise, you've got to get shadow banned. Yeah. It's always the interest in the pleasure that's caused more whole brain patterning where something is, where your pleasure is ever more neurologically inhibiting aversion and vice versa. Why shouldn't it be? So why shouldn't this charge where something is gets discharged, you see? It's a common account evermore. And so where something is not a higher price, and yes, it's very negative economically inducted, offered, it's an inferior product outright. It's reducing your choice and wiping out all competition and things. It's just wrong. When does a bell go off? It's like blood didn't come from your long bones, and enzymes didn't get transported by your immune cells, which they do. And there's a law of adaptive secretion of digestive enzymes, which there is. And you are somatotyped as a frugivore. Yes, you are. So Google's going to say you're not. Bull-dust. Life good can pleomorph. Does it say that? No, it doesn't. Well, it does. That's science. Your body's terrain that counts? Yes, it is. So stick with the body terrain, okay? So what's the reason why you've got all this lackluster, going on? You've got all that stuff which is not really plant-based. And it just really is, where's the enzyme in that? Where's the capacity to be able to break something down like a surfactant that you've just been swallowing from eating animal flesh, birds or fish? It's a gross aberration, honest. Far, far away. You'd have to get the cat out of your formula, honest. And stop being dog stereotyped. You're in an eyewear state. Have you got a healthy stool? Yeah, I'd say so, probably. Has science ever looked at what that is and you understand what a healthy stool is? Gee, yes, it has, but it's just not available to you. Why? Because it's not right up front for you. It says that you're understanding what this is. So math that's currently being used can't give you the area of relief. You're kidding. It's like, no. He says, like anything that you could actually model nature? No, it's not. You'd have to have a math that could model a smoke trail in the air, and then you're on it. But otherwise, sharks, sorry. It's just an asymmetric warfare done on you, being waged all over the nation. People just control to their books and their education and nobody getting educated. So CBCO is really negative inducted. And it's not you or anybody that chose that social compact whatsoever. That's just a social machinery that just sort of came around you. And it's just an military industrial complex. It's danger. It's monopoly. It's a glaring falsity, please. And don't tell me that it's not the same as what Google is, where that is. You've got issues, honest, of total lacked proper oversight. Where it should be, it could be. And it's just really none of the public have anything that something could be given to you that's from a broad base. And, the office where that is for sale. Wow, you're kidding. Yeah, the office is for rent. It's like you're kidding. It's like, wow, gosh, what do you got after that, please? Don't tell me that the office has not been for rent. That's wrong. So pseudo de jure corporates just own for a day government-controlled into fitness where radical stuff is going on, where someone's got control outside their nation, buggering everything up inside. Don't tell me that that's not going on. It sure is. So evidence really points to the molecule of death where something is, you see, and all that flesh consumption and extraneous amino acids like glutathione and methionine. And all of that just grows. Neoplasm and fermentation and excessive consumption of the flesh eater. So what are you really looking at? Is this significant at all? Do you have a feeling that neoplastic cells use glutathione for their survival and proliferation? And it would be really resistant to treatment if you're just chowing down on all of that protein from flesh and bean. Bacon and eggs in the morning. Millions of dollars to have you there, but bacon and eggs in the morning. That's what it's equivalent to. So it's driven by what should be accurate, but isn't. So where did you ever hear that glutathione grows cancer? Where did you ever hear that neoplasm is a protein disease? If you looked into my writing, you would. So it really depends where the neoplasm is, doesn't it, in the context where the question is. But where neoplastic cells are and they become starved, why would you want to do that, you see? Because you're robbing nitrogen from yourself otherwise. It's just a damaged coagulated amino acid that's cooked, dead, skeletonized calorie. What's that? It's enzyme resistant. It's damaged glutathione. It's a powerful antioxidant, but can't be broken down properly. So it helps cancer cells kick off. Small amount that your intestinal tract produces is good. Why? Because it just neutralizes oxidative stress for themselves, but otherwise, no. And so you've got that substrate that's just being fermented and the metastasized sort of condition exacerbated, you see, because you're eating excessive flesh and bean diet. You've got that mitochondrial metabolite, glutathione, fermented, playing a crucial role where neoplastic metastasized conditions are. And you've got that toxin uncontrolled. Fried sticky fingers in the lobby of the hospital. So it's very confounding. You've got cocktails there. Cocktails. What are you going to say that you know the effect of your tail of a cock, your cocktail? Well, we won't call it a drug because that's just really, really negative, isn't it? Better to call them candies like Medis or something. So it's like not the answer, honest. Neoplasm just grows ever faster. You've got genetic mutation going on where the cells are. You've got toxins, epigenetic, knocking everything out. Natural inhibitors usually removing all the natural growth hormone that's supposed to be there just because you're eating bacon and eggs in the morning. Why don't you have a grapefruit? Perhaps if you need to, put a bit of sugar over the top of it or something, you see? So otherwise that fat, protein and all that stuff is not going to be removed and should be. It's just otherwise it's a natural growth control for neoplastic cells, you see, yes? And simple fetal endoplastic undifferentiated cells in mass, and they can only survive themselves with aerobic glycolysis, which gets kicked off, doesn't it, on your fat meal, your heavy protein, and your complex carb all cooked out and Googleized. And so it's a fat of an indigested protein, which is fermenting. People can say, hydrogen is the big, big problem. It's like, yeah, right, bull dust. You don't even know. So the terrain where it's good. And why don't you learn actually how to keep the terrain proper? So osmotic pressure where the blood is supposed to be kept at 7.7 atmospheres, basically. Your body temperature is supposed to be kept at 37 degrees Celsius or 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit. And pressure is crucial for the life colloid and for your cell function. And globulin and fibrillin really is in excess when you're just partying it out and you just got chowed down on junk. Dead food. What? You're going to have any albumin left after that? No, you don't. Why? Because it's all been crowded out by fibrin and globulin in your blood. You see? So albumin is your super transporter, and you really could be getting something done, and you may as well pay attention more because you're going to be picking up things as we go here. So somebody's going to say, oh no, I'm going to leave what's so important toward the very end. No. Is something going on right now which is continuous and not something going over the same thing at all. It's like albumin. Are you going to have more albumin if you've just been continuously taking drugs? No, you're not. Because it creates inflammation. It's definite. And so what's going on to reduce albumin? Hey, that's not cell rejuvenation. Opposite. Okay? So how could you and I have cell rejuvenation if we, other than producing and gaining more albumin in yourself, which is a super transporter? How could you have inflammatory meals continuously, non-stop, and you're just like unleashing it all from the flesh and the bean and the combos and the starch and the fat, and you're raising somatostatin, that hormone, in this work? What does it do? Shuts your pancreas down, shuts your stomach down, shuts your anterior pituitary down. So do you have any human growth hormone after that? No, you don't. Oh. So blood sugar, how's that going to be kept normal if you don't really have any glucagon from your pancreas? It's not. And so, drugging is needed after that? Please. You're going to put more toxin in? You see what I mean? This is very weird, I'm telling you. If you don't maintain the micromineral that's essential, which you're really supposed to have for your proper nerve function, where's the energy going to be for the limbs and your movement of your limbs? You've really got to have these microminerals. And just let's suppose that one of the things of our work is about this aromatic amino acid, and that's the only one that actually transports mineral. And so honestly, where's that in any food? Have you got any zeta potential left in what you've consumed? Or is it just very highly refined This is sort of a better sort of questioning where someone is. So it's really attention to have proper blood pressure, and you've got a proper oxygenation for the nerves upstairs. Otherwise, the frontal cortex could have got shut down, and so you're counteracting blood hydrostatic pressure and all kinds of things where micromineral is, which is needed. And that's the reason for this versus, no, I'm going to give you a little pill that's going to toxify you, it's going to cause you to be more demented. And so you've got what's needed to push fluid out of the blood vessels or pulling water back into the capillary. You've got micromineral like magnesium and fluorine and iodine and things, which is very water-loving. And you've got to have these things to be able to maintain a proper blood volume, you see. So what about deficiency? Minerals off the charts. What you're not making proper plasma. That's right. I mean, so how's anybody going to have any energy where that is? And so the chemicals with it, which are drugs, all the aromatic amino acid and everything is just gone from that. It just doesn't have a single bit of zeta potential to be able to be absorbed at all. And so albumin is, like in Jubb's rejuvenation, is yours and my being able to target things where you've got abundant protein, and albumin is ever more carrying various substance, and you're maintaining osmotic pressure. And so you're not really being given anything inflammatory. You're not given any new toxins. That's what the reason would be for that. And so keep in mind approximately 50% of the body's dopamine is always produced in the brain of the gut. Dopamine, yeah. 50% of the dopamine is made in the brain of the gut. So the enteric nervous system, like serotonin, how much is made in the brain of the gut? 90%. What you could say, you've got a gut to mind the gut. That's right. You've got the intestinal and epithelial cells, and you have to keep in mind, which is really outside what the larger nerve cell center is. You've got a gastrointestinal tract. You've got adrenal kidney function, and you've got nerve centers that really rely upon dopamine to convert amino acids like tyrosine into dopamine. Just through a few two-step sort of process involving L-DOPA, and otherwise, how are you going to do that if you don't have any zeta potential? How are you going to make that where you don't really have that nutrient, right? Yeah, the food you eat cause you to lack the enzymes. And what did you just eat? Congealed, coagulated, hydrophobic food, which was dead and had no zeta potential, you see. So like blood, that's made in the marrow of your bones. No, it's not. It could be, yeah, after severe fasting sort of condition where nothing else was left. But tissue like that becomes ever more red blood corpuscle. And all the cells of the body are totally potent and can reverse differentiate back into a red blood corpuscle. So modern medicine is really a travesty that you could imagine, of course. And you've got pancreatic insufficiencies going on. And that absolutely is a stopperedness of its own function. And so it's not an uncommon thing that the pancreas is digesting itself, you see. And so you and I, we've really got to have love inside. And if you've got iron, you can feel love. Otherwise, there's no micronutrient like magnesium, and people could sort of look a bit socially awkward. Everything's absorbed ever more where interest is. And what's the listener's nerve? You see, you've got that VMAT2 gene that's responsible for making neurotransmitters that could have got knocked out. You've got the 1p36 gene epigenetically that also could have been knocked out. And so are you making neurotransmitters? Probably not. Maybe no. Do you notice that people where you are could be very good at transpersonal perception? Or no, they're not at all. So making neurotransmitters sort of really where toxin is, it could have ever caused ever more efficient behaviour or some zombifiedness. So histamine, which is like a fluid where flowingness is where if it's not, most people could have got some sort of metabolic disorder, big time. And so sleepiness evermore where that is after eating, it's a definite condition of a toxicity. But where people are, there's bursts of dopamine, and there's sort of a hyperactive attention disorder, sort of. So it's hard pressed to say sort of cystic fibrosis is not some symptom that's like a syndrome that's underneath things, but that's something that's very manageable. But where limited mind functionness would be where aversion was, somebody wouldn't have been able to get into their frontal cortex at all. And we're looking at correcting metabolic disorder and having the ability to be able to frame things positively. So most people then could really be more in their frontal cortex, and how relaxed your shoulders are, how relaxed your tummy is in life, or what is the subject matter that you're bringing up all the time. So somatostatin is one of the causes of aversion to be the primary subject that somebody could bring up, because glucagon isn't existed. And so epinephrine, norepinephrine causes rush-like activity more. And below your random phoneme generator, because somebody had low blood sugar, all their nerves were mainly in a depolarized state because it just doesn't have proper blood sugar whatsoever. So whatever is correct more where science is, it's possible for us to be able to interpret new information ever more directly. And what's deficient could be sort of more figured out there. But the zoos, they finally gave the animals food that had its enzymes. For a long while they just cooked it all, and they saw the animals died at the zoo. So some time ago they suddenly saw all the food that they had to give the animals had to be in its uncooked state more, and had to be more enzymatic. So it was a funny thing, I guess, that people saw that you couldn't cook the grass and then give it to the rabbit, apparently, or something. And so Google is not really saying anything about that. So there's still these domesticated diseases which cost way too much money. But if time is spent more equivalent to something which is causing a flower to be or otherwise you've got flour that's enriched by iron filings, and it's all bleached with bromide. And so toast and butter and marmalade spread washed down with a bit of high processed juice with eggs and bacon or something. It's about zero for your health, you see. So Asperger's and autism is a great spectrum of that. And what's excitotoxic, which is glutamates all consumed, doesn't ever protect the blood and the brain, where that barrier didn't exist in childhood. And so boys, of course, it takes their brains more 18 months before it's fully protected. But growing up when excitotoxin is only just where the baby food is, that's going to cause the cortex to be inflamed and intestinal tracts too. And the vagal nerve that sits above your autonomic nervous system really puts a brake on sympathetic and parasympathetic. Doesn't really work like it should. So there's a lot of overreactedness otherwise then. So there's degrees of Asperger's, of course, which is an autistic spectrum, but the autonomic nervous system having a brake over the top of it really is the vagal enteric nervous system that sits above it. And so where inflammation is in the intestine, it doesn't let the parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous system function like as it should. And so you always see dopamine always in exaggerated flamboyant types of outbursts a bit, and sadness otherwise and anxiety, sort of crying sort of fit a bit. But that's all erupted where the past could have been. Cystic fibrosis is probably the biggest state that's underneath all of that. So there's a science which, if I could sit quiet and have given this to you, it's sort of really not dissociating which is really control, isn't it? Or not distracting or interrogating or intimidating and things, which is all sort of control freak stuff. But it's more playful, and where leisure or recreation is more, you've got more whole brain functioning. Otherwise, somebody could be on strike, or they could be introverted, extroverted. And so individuals with sort of Asperger's is a whole degree of spectrum of behaviours and things. So where somebody could be just internally occupied and just not have any idea much of the track where things are, it's very, for you or anybody, it's just a very Pavlovian type of a conditioning. But whole brain functioning is pleasure and interest that cause you to be able to be more in your frontal cortex. Otherwise, the frontal cortex always is shut down. Aversion always shuts that down. So this whole brain functioning that's sort of being used more is really inductive, and new behaviours always are triggered more afterwards, which is being anchored, you see. So recall is more able to pick up things, and you're ever more able to get triggered where motivation is. Otherwise, somebody could be doing a 42-day cleanse, which involves more vestibular setting the bones and things by doing these manoeuvres where the head is, so that the bones with the vestibular senses can no longer be causing vertigo per se. But synesthesia is you being given a way to be able to process things, and focusing at your goal more quickly. You could achieve this by processing and more and learning about the vestibular sense. So you're just using direction to go toward and have things within versus outside and away from, which is not being associated but more dissociated in life. So it's a behavioural manifestation which is just going to keep things in kindergarten steps. And what's social? You've got different sorts of toxins where food is in the modern world, and all of those things can create urinary interstitial cystitis. And it's a depolarization of the cells of the bladder. It's just the same as other places too. But normal magnetic dynamic current, which is supposed to be there to have proper muscle function. And so you've got the scanner gland for her and prostate for him, where it's effects of toxin. And there's a whole class of non-toxin, like mycotoxins especially, and where the pelvic terrain is, and contaminated material where the colon is, and then material's never flowing through the colon like it's supposed to. So dead food causes a depolarization of all of those cells, and excessive tannins like pigment. It's really impacts the bladder, and it's absolutely seen impacting bladder function. But if you look for the answers, you may have a bit of an urgency, but it's live food, which we're talking about here, and it's low toxin like pigment and low tannin, basically. But a lot of tannic acid otherwise is in excess, and lots of beverages and all sorts of things that could have added onto that. And those things can cause the bladder not to function, the bladder lining as well as what it can. But you've got aggravated bladder conditions, and you've got excessive dead food tannins, which could have caused those symptoms to be far worse. You've got symptoms where bladder conditions are, and you're reducing the tannin and toxin and dead food. It really helps all of that heal up. So Jubb's overactive bladder formula is cystic fibrosis, and it's whatever the non-ecological terrain would have been, life colloid making up that tissue, like the bladder walls and lining of it, could have had irritant, you see. So inflamed receptors in the bladder wall and injuries where that is associated with bladder pathology. So where nutrient is like live food, really only got small array of the tannins is perfect, what should be. And so broccoli, artichoke, hard cranberries, they've all got condensed tannins and proanthocyanins and everything that really inhibit non-ecological terrain like E. coli. And so an overactive bladder formula really is going to work to help soothe the bladder. Otherwise, like benign types of hyperplasic cells of the uterus or prostate and things, or Skinner glands, or could be something which can help be cleared away. Horsetail and antioxidants and anti-inflammatories are, you've got usnea that can help, and corn silk and chamomile, slippery almond mint and things like this. So if somebody really is more in moderation where anything else is possible, some effect could be. But if you're really talking about more excessive tannins and phytic acid, which binds to all the micromineral, and so it's anti-nutrient. And so a lot of food is binding to the minerals when it's wrong food combos, the digestive tract reducing what's proper absorption, you see. So in colloidal biology and the secrets of an alkaline body, you're really learning about how the blood corpuscle really aggregates, fuses and differentiates from an into an astrocyte cell or into a body cell. And that pleomorphism is really what really is going on.